Welcome to episode number 333 of the Marine Layer podcast. It's a mailbag episode, so we'll open it up and answer your guys' best listener questions.
Reminder for you guys, if you're watching this show, just make sure if you're on the YouTube side, again, you can see the video aspect of this. Go hit like on this video, drop a comment, and please go hit subscribe. It's the best way to go support the channel. Go to download, rate and review 5 stars if you're listening. You can check us out at our website, marinelayerpod.com, where you'll find everything from our merch, our Patreon. We love seeing people rock the merch, especially around Christmas time. It's a great holiday gift, holiday time. Go get your merch over at the website. That's marinelayerpod.com, and you can find us all across social media at marinelayerpod.
Let's get it rolling. And we welcome you to this episode of the Marine Layer podcast, part of the Just Baseball Podcast Network, recording here on Wednesday evening, December 3rd, a day early, because Lyle and I will be getting on a plane during our normal recording time on Thursday to fly to Florida. We'll be in South Florida a few days before the winter meetings start. Sunday evening-ish, and then Lyle and I should have a lot to talk about and what we're hearing, what we're talking to people about down in Orlando Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday before we get back Wednesday evenings. I mean, it should be fun, Lyle. Do you have a prediction what we'll be doing when this episode comes out on, well, actually, no, we'll be asleep, but Friday in Florida? What are we going to be doing?
Waking up and reacting to Kyle Tucker being a Mariner?
Think we'll pass him in the airport somewhere? Because there were some rumors out there today.
Oh, about him having a meeting in Toronto or with the Blue Jays?
In Tampa with the Blue Jays.
It's fake, people. Don't fall for it. You think Kyle Tucker's just going to make it evidently known that he's going to be a Mariner? No, him and his agency have to play the game. They have to meet with all the teams. They got to try to get the best offer. There's going to be negotiations. It's all decoy. Man's a Mariner.
Did you check in with him?
You think I'm putting this on the pod if I didn't? I'm a reliable source.
Well, hopefully we see him down there. Maybe he'll be mulling around the winter meetings. Maybe the number one free agent just likes to rub elbows with everybody. Maybe we'll walk past him and Jerry DiPoto just chopping it up at the coffee shop down in Orlando at the hotel.
Well, it's
entirely possible.
I already said it, remember? I'm going to do the E.T. thing where I leave the trail of Reese's Pieces, but it goes right into the Mariner suite, and then he's not coming out till they work out their differences, have some dialogue, and ultimately I see pen to paper.
Well, there's not much else news to react to here on Wednesday, because we talked about, on the episode that came out on Wednesday, we talked about the Devin Williams signing and whether or not the Mariners should have done it. Yes, the Mariners should have tried to sign Devin Williams, so would have offered him that contract. It was below market value. The other name we pivoted to for a cheaper price that we sort of floated out there on that episode was Emilio Pagan. Unfortunately, here on Wednesday, Emilio Pagan signs a 2-year, $20 million deal with the Reds. So he is now off the board, and the Mariners have one less reliever to target in this free agent or trade market. And I will say, again, it stays true. The Mariners understand they need bullpen arms. I really do think they understand that. But it's not going to be Emilio Pagan now. A little disappointing. I would have, again, offered this deal.
So I would have offered the deal, especially with it being just a 2-year deal. However, if you're going to pay a reliever $10 million a year, just go pay Devin Williams the $15. If you were even going to consider Emilio Pagan, just pay Devin Williams.
Yes, but if Devin Williams is off the board, then you could sign Emilio Pagan instead. And I would have been okay. Like, that's the kind of guy you want. He fits as the last piece of a big four. Because he's above Bizzardo. He's not, I don't know, he's probably on the same level right now as a Gabe Spire in terms of effectiveness. And that's what you could use, like a Gabe Spire level reliever, but he's right-handed. And this past year, Emilio Pagan was really good. Not as good as Devin Williams has been for his career, but he's really good. And for $10 million, it's a decent price, but not for the Mariners, unfortunately.
He put up basically a 2-WAR season in the bullpen. He was really good.
It's hard to do. I don't even think Munoz has done that.
Has he not? Yeah, maybe he hasn't.
I don't think so. I think it's been like just under 2.
I'm honestly shocked the Reds were the ones to pony this up. I know he was with the Reds last year, but just the Reds spending money, period. If you're going to spend like this on a reliever, I would hope this is a signal for their sake and the sake of their fan base. Because, again, I actually like that team and I like that fan base. I would hope that they're actually going to spend on some offense, too. But who knows?
They should. spending on relievers is the cheapest option.
And the shortest.
Least amount of total money. Ultimately, the Reds are getting Emilio Pagan, who could, even though he's in his mid-30s, for the next 2 years, he could be a top, let's say, top 15 to 10 bullpen arm in baseball if he just keeps up what he did last year. And they get him for about half the price of what the Mariners are roughly eventually going to pay Jorge Polanco.
Yeah, it's true. Also, if the Reds are bad again next year, let's be real. Emilio Pagan may just be off the books. He may get traded at the deadline next summer. If he's
and it's a tradable contract.
Right. I mean, if the Reds are bad and he has another good year, somebody may trade for him. Because it's only a 2-year deal. But I will say, speaking of Jorge Polanco, because we don't have to spend all the time in the world on Emilio Pagan, I wish the Mariners had ultimately gotten that one done. It's not the end of the world that they didn't. I think TJ's right that they understand they need more bullpen help. But the only other news was friend of the pod, Adam Jude, put out an article here on Wednesday in the Seattle Times, which you should go read and check out. But I would say a couple of the talking points to take away from are, there's two. Let's focus on the main one in Jorge Polanco, which is there's mutual interest in both sides on a reunion, which isn't totally shocking. The Mariners obviously would love to have Polanco back in the lineup. He really fits the roster. And Polanco, by all accounts, really liked being here. I don't think he's somebody that loves change. I think he likes having a routine. And obviously, he'd be playing with a winning ball club. But the other note that Adam put in his article was the two sides are currently, it doesn't mean forever, but currently not all that close on a deal, which means the money's far apart.
And Salk was talking about it on the radio this morning on Brock and Salk, that what Polanco's asking for is really high right now. But, like, this is free agency. Like, of course, on December 3rd, his ask is going to be very high. And if you read the article, Polanco has interest from at least 5 teams, so he knows it's like, I'm in no rush right now. Like, people know I'm healthy. People know I've rebounded and I can hit really well. And I know I have leverage to try and get a multi-year deal here. So I'm going to ride this out as much as I can. The number he's asking for right now is not going to be the number he ends up getting because the teams are just not going to pay it, and he'll bring it down. But right now, there's no reason to do that. Spring training doesn't start for 3.5 months.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And by all accounts, what people have projected for Polanco in free agency is around the $12 to $15 million AAV mark. So if we had to put an educated guess together, if you're Polanco in his camp and the Mariners feel like the money's far apart and his camp feels like the money's far apart, I'm going to guess they're probably asking for something in the range of $18 to $20 million a year right now. Which, if you're Jorge Polanco's camp and you're his agency, yeah, why not? You have to ask. Doesn't mean a team's going to necessarily say yes, but if you don't even try, then you might not get the deal you want for the highest amount of money. So, of course, you're going to try to ask for $20 million a year for your client.
I mean, sometimes the Rockies come in and are like, sure.
Yes, exactly. Some team might bite the bullet and potentially overpay.
And if Polanco did that, is he going to win anything? No, most likely not. But is he going to make a lot of money? More than he would make in Seattle? Yeah. Would he be in a great place to hit? Yeah.
Correct. Listen, like, you can ask for plenty of things. I can ask to say, hey, TJ and I want to take over Pardon My Take and just take all its listenership. We can ask to do that. We're not going to be told yes.
We can ask to be chairman of the team, of the Mariners. Doesn't mean they're going to just give it to us.
No. But we can ask.
We can ask. It never. The worst thing that can happen is what, Lyle?
They say no.
That's it. That's all it is. And you got to learn to take rejection in life.
I can ask about Kyle Tucker as many times as I want down at the winter meetings, and I will be doing that. Doesn't mean the answer is necessarily going to be what we want to hear. But then again, those people don't know. He's a Mariner. Anyway, we can ask. You just don't know what answer you're going to get. So if you're Polanco's camp, yeah, why not ask for as much money as you can? You just
the most important part of that report is not the money, I think. It's just that both sides have mutual interest, and that's what we want. Like, right. That's what we thought. And then Adam is now reporting it as Polanco is seeking out suitors. The Mariners are interested in having Jorge Polanco back, and Jorge Polanco is interested in coming to the Mariners. That is about as much as you can ask for.
Yeah.
And parsing through comments and actions of the Mariners already this offseason, the Mariners are probably offering a very fair amount to Jorge Polanco. I'm sure they are. So it's whether or not Polanco wants to take it, ultimately.
This really does have a chance to shape up as a very, very boring Mariners offseason, doesn't it? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But we floated out all these ideas, and we're going to talk through all these scenarios and all these different avenues they could go down. When in the end, it could just be they brought back Naylor, they brought back Polanco, and they'll bring in some bullpen arm. Which, that's a great offseason. It's a boring offseason, but it's a good offseason.
Boring and winning is better than entertaining and bad.
Yeah, exactly. It's just not going to give everybody the honeymoon phase of a new player where if we were down in spring training and we see, I'll just use the example because we were just talking about him on Wednesday's episode, Tatsuya Imai. You don't get the honeymoon effect of seeing Imai walk around and say, oh, look at that guy. How great could he be? What could he do for the Mariners? It's going to be all the faces potentially that you already know. But all the faces that you already know had the Mariners 8 outs away from the World Series. So they bring back Polanco after re-signing Naylor and then get a bullpen arm. All right, that's a good offseason.
It's good for us because we like watching the Mariners win. It's bad for us because then we can't just theorize all offseason. Can't, unfortunately. Like, they signed Polanco. What is there left to theorize? It's essentially maneuvering your pitching staff. And what trades could they make for bullpen arms? I feel like if they sign Polanco, that's the last bat. The last starter caliber bat that they would get.
Unless Kyle Tucker's on the board.
Unless Kyle Tucker's on the board, yeah. But if Kyle Tucker signs while we're down at the winter meetings, and then so does Jorge Polanco, then we get then we're at Christmas and all the presents have already been opened.
Yeah, although I honestly think Polanco's going to wait this thing out a little bit. I'm not saying it'll be quite as long as last year where he really signed late, but if you're Polanco and you're his camp, why not let your market play out a little bit? You're not in a rush to do anything.
Yeah. And then the last note Adam had from his article is prospect related for the Mariners. Michael Arroyo, Mariners' former infield prospect, has been playing games in the Colombian Winter League. Which Winter League is that?
Yeah, I think it's the Venezuelan Winter League, but yeah.
Okay. But he is out playing left field in that. And Adam was reporting that the Mariners want him playing left field and that his move out there is quasi-permanent. That he's going to, when he gets to spring training next year, is going to be playing left field.
Yeah, so I was a little surprised when I first saw this because we've always talked about him as being a little bit positionless. We wondered, where is he going to play long term? But if you're the Mariners, this actually makes sense, and I'd say this for a couple of reasons. Number one, while it might not always look like it off the eye test, Michael Arroyo actually grades out as a perfectly average runner. On the 20 to 80 scale, he is graded out by our friend Aram Layton at Just Baseball as a 50 grade runner. So he's perfectly average in terms of speed. So if you can just run a little bit, which he can, and you look around at what the Mariners have in their system and up on their big league roster. First base, well, he's not going to play there. You've got Josh Naylor for 5 years. Second base, by all accounts, Cole Young's going to be there for the very foreseeable future. Shortstop, I don't think Arroyo could really play shortstop long term, and that's also going to be Colt Emerson's spot long term, presumably. Third base, I mean, I guess it's possible, but they don't seem to be keen on wanting to move him to third base. They want to seem to move him to the outfield, which they must think for that reason that that's just not where he'd grade out the best moving forward long term. So what do? They're going to put him in left field, and Randy Arozarena is going to be a free agent at the end of 2026. If they don't bring in somebody outside the organization next winter to play left field, that could be a potential solution at some point. Because if Michael Arroyo just hits, you got to find a position for him.
To start the season, maybe. It depends how this year goes. Left field is not rocket science to play defensively. I mean, technically, Jesse Winker played left field. So if Jesse Winker can stand out in left field and let the ball go by him and stay on a roster an entire season, I think Michael Arroyo could do the same thing. But, Michael Arroyo's defense, as people have talked about, doesn't work quite as well in the infield. Might as well try it in the outfield. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? You move him back to the infield if it's a disaster. I don't think they would move him permanently to left field if they didn't think he could handle it. And his bat is too good for him to not get an opportunity like that, as opposed to you just trying to trade him because you're like, well, I don't know where to put him. So now instead he's going to get a better shot at making the big leagues. And that's great.
Yeah.
So his goals for next year are going to be hit at the level he's hit his entire minor league career, but do it in the hardest place to hit in the minor leagues, and look fine in the outfield. He doesn't need to win a Gold Glove. He needs to catch the balls that hit to him. He needs to not let the ball roll through his legs, and he needs to not look lost. That's it. That's his goals.
Yeah. And not to say he couldn't get traded, but if he doesn't and the Mariners have all intentions of keeping him and they do keep him for the long run, then yeah, you have to find a position for him, because we just laid it out. There is no path to second base with Cole Young there. There's no path to shortstop with Colt Emerson there. They don't seem to really think he's going to grade out as a third baseman. And again, they may find a third baseman long-term at some point. Find a position for him, and they're doing that. So credit to them. He's going to play the outfield. And for those who maybe sleep on his bat a little bit, I always say this about Arroyo. I think he is far and away the most slept-on prospect in the organization. And part of that is because he doesn't always have a position. And he's not physically just imposing the way that somebody like Laz Montez is. But then you look at the numbers and you look at the bat-to-ball skills. Michael Arroyo has a career OPS of 870 in minor league baseball. And that includes 56 games in Double-A last year when he was a 20-year-old and had a 717 OPS. I mean, this man, for a lot of his minor league career, already has put up a 900 OPS in minor league baseball. This dude can hit.
There's a solid argument he has the best overall bat in the Mariners minor league system. Like, better than Laz, better than Colt. Like, the complete package of strikeouts, walks, power, doubles, like all of that he has. So This will be something really exciting to watch. I don't think this is going to boost him as a prospect. Like, Arum's not going to jump him up as top 100 prospects because Michael Arroyo is now a left fielder instead of a second baseman. But it does give the Mariners more flexibility and more freedom to move him up and down.
I mean, he may just be one of those prospects that's always a little slept on and then could get to the big leagues and really just mash. Yeah. Again, Michael Arroyo does not have Laz's power. That's not what TJ's saying, but TJ is saying the overall combination of everything might make him the best bat in the system. There's an argument for it. Maybe the upside isn't quite what some of the upside is for the other guys, but just the overall current package and the floor is certainly an argument to be made about Arroyo. I mean, the guy hit 23 homers back in 24 across minor league baseball. Like, he can leave the ballpark.
As a 19-year-old.
Yeah. He can really hit.
We got a great mailbag with a great batch of questions to get to, but before we get to those, Lyle, you want to read an ad?
Yeah, let's talk to you guys about our friends over at Pagaccia's Pub 85. You guys know, I mean, it's an awesome spot. It's over in Kirkland, this friendly neighborhood bar where you can watch a bunch of games. There's 20 TVs in the place, so whatever sports you're interested in showing up for and going to watch, they'll have it on. You can also play pool and darts with a bunch of great games in the place. There's big food menu with a bunch of different options, and if you go during happy hour, well, drinks are $3 and $4. $3 and $4 happy hour specials from 2 to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. Yeah, those are awesome deals. All of that is over at Pagaccia's Pub 85 in Kirkland.
And a reminder to you guys, the best way to get in on these mailbags is to go over to our Patreon and sign up. That's patreon.com/MarineLayerPod. Our Patreon offers a wide variety of perks. You get access to not only the mailbag priority, but you get ad-free episodes and a chance to get on monthly video calls with Lyle and I. Every single month, you get a chance to sit on a video call with us and chat about Mariners baseball and life or really whatever. It's a great time. So go to patreon.com/MarineLayerPod and check that out for yourself. First up on the mailbag, it's Graham, and Graham's question is, wild take. Brendan Donovan and Jake Cronenworth to cover third and second base this season are better than having Polanco and other options.
I mean, I understand the argument. Donovan's younger. He has continued to hit. He's probably a little bit more of an athlete. But to me, somebody like Brendan Donovan feels more like a backup plan if Jorge Polanco falls through. I think the Mariners' priority is to bring Polanco back. And if they miss out, then they would pivot to looking to trade for somebody like Brendan Donovan. Because Donovan's going to cost you prospects.
That's what you think the Mariners are going to do. Which situation would the Mariners be better in 2026? This is what I was grappling with.
Donovan's obviously going to give you more defense. There's more versatility. I mean, if Polanco's even somewhat of what he did last year, I honestly think... I mean, by WAR, this is close, right? It's not a surefire thing one way or another. I just think for a team that really needs offensive production again, I would side with Polanco, paired with the fact that for what they need on the roster, he just fits it so well. Like, they need a DH who can also move out and play the field when Cal needs DH days, which is what he does. You don't want Jorge Polanco necessarily playing second base 7 days a week. You want Cole Young to eventually be the second baseman of the future and keep developing and turn into a potential top 10 second baseman in the league, which I think he eventually can be. But like, Donovan can't really do that. That's not really a DH. Where Polo is a DH who can play second base once to twice a week.
If you were to acquire those two players, yes, it would cost something. I don't think it would cost something where you're heartbroken that's how much you gave up. I think it would be a fair price.
I don't know.
I know he's got 3 years of control, but he's not like the Cardinals don't have that much leverage. 2 years of control.
2 years.
3.
I think it's 2.
But he's not a good enough player where the Cardinals have the sort of leverage to yank your best prospects away for him. And he's not young either. There's a couple things working against the Cardinals with him trading him. And then if you're to trade for Jake Cronenworth, he's making money and he's old. So that would lower his costs as well. Think about this. Last year, both of those players were worth just under 3 wins and both put up a WRC plus of over 115. If you were to get a 3-win player with a 115 WRC plus at both second base and third base, I'd argue that's better than what they would have just for 2026. The conversation of this, though, does extend beyond 2026 because Cronenworth has 5 years left on his deal and Donovan has multiple years, where you could say, okay, Colt Emerson's going to be better than both those players combined by year 3. So, right. And both those players will be well into their 30s. So there's an argument of long-term versus just next year. Just next year, I would buy that the Mariners would be better and their floor would be a lot higher if they had those two players.
Okay, I can buy that argument. That's totally fair. Also, hand up, I'm wrong, you're right. Donovan has 3 years of control.
So by the end of that third year of Brendan Donovan, and Jake Cronenworth would be 33 at that point. Yeah, I mean, you would anticipate Colt Emerson would be really stepping into his stardom then, and you'd have nowhere to play him because you would have both those guys under contract on your roster unless you were going to trade him away for nothing, right? Mm-hmm. But it would block Colt Emerson's development, and that's another thing about this. Do you want somewhere for Colt Emerson to play? I do.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Let me provide some additional context to this, too. I'm going to assume part of the reason Graham threw out these names of Brendan Donovan and Jake Cronenworth is because it's not totally random. So Jeff Passan and Kylie McDaniel of ESPN put out a trade list the other day in an article that you can go check out over on ESPN. But they ranked their top 25 players who could be traded this offseason. They ranked them, and they also tried to fit certain players with certain teams. And a couple of the guys that they said would fit the Mariners were Brendan Donovan for one. Jake Cronenworth was another. There's also some of the usual suspects in there. Ketel Marte was in there, not shockingly. I think they linked Alec Boehm to the Mariners just with the idea of potentially trying to get a third baseman, although I don't love that one, to be honest. Yeah, so Donovan and Cronenworth were two names that both Passan and Kylie McDaniel linked to Seattle. I don't know how much sense the Cronenworth one makes. And it's like TJ just talked about. It's a lot of years on the deal. It's a lot of money. I'm guessing like the Padres probably aren't trading him just to have a team take on 25% of his money. They want to clear money. They're trying to get rid of some contracts.
It's $12 million a year.
So I almost think that they would trade him for not a lot to wherever they could trade Jake Cronenworth, like almost nothing back if a team was willing to take on most of that deal. But if you were to sit here and say, would you sign Jake Cronenworth right now at 32 years old to a 5-year, $60 million deal? I think most people would probably say no.
Probably no. But my thought on these players is floor raises, the ceiling is not as high. Like it's safe, but it's not. You're not shooting for the stars with this one. So thank you, Graham, for the question. Next one comes from Josh on Patreon, and Josh asks, do you think Josh Naylor's slow guy base stealing skills are something that he could teach? Could we see 20 to 30 stolen bases from Dom Canzone next year?
Are there aspects of it that are teachable? I'm sure there are. And I'm sure Josh Naylor in spring training and throughout the year may give some tips to guys who may be looking for him. But there's also a reason most guys with second to third percentile sprint speed are not swiping 30 bags a year. It is a very unique trait to pick up pitchers and read signals the way he does. So I don't think, unfortunately, we can just snap our fingers and say with Josh Naylor here, he can teach every guy how to swipe 25, 30 bases. So I'm going to side with no on this.
You could make the extreme argument here of the Ricky Henderson example. There's been a ton of guys in Major League Baseball who have been really fast in its history, but only one stole bases at a rate so absurdly above everybody else. And that's because guys like Ricky Henderson had the uncanny ability to read pitchers and get great jumps and get on base a ton. It's just not that easy. Josh Naylor can tell Dom Canzone, hey, look for this. Hey, look for that. But Dom has to go execute it. And if Dom in his career has never been a stolen base guy like that, it's hard to just pick it up and be great at it. Like what we saw from Josh Naylor this year, we might not even see from him again in his career. Josh Naylor could very well not even steal 15 bases next year. That thing he did might have been a totally unique circumstance in his career that he's not going to be able to execute again. If he stole that many bases, maybe he gets caught half the time this time because it's hard. It's really hard to do. So I don't feel like, Josh, that is a very projectable skill on other people. I feel like you have to have good instincts, and instincts aren't really taught.
Sure. For example, J.P. Crawford, who's much faster than Josh Naylor is, and actually a lot of years has graded out as a pretty good base runner because he's pretty good first to third or second to home, and he gets the angles right. He's not a great base stealer, even though he is faster. So it's the same idea of Josh Naylor could teach J.P. Crawford a thing or two, but that doesn't necessarily mean J.P. is going to pick all of it up and just start stealing 30 bases the way Naylor did. It's just a unique trait.
And the Mariners are not going to greenlight all the slow guys on the roster to just steal at will. Josh Naylor earned himself that reputation to steal. Dom Canzone is not going to get the green light to just steal whenever he wants. Like I'm sure Josh had at the end of the season. That's asking for outs on the base paths, and the Mariners cannot afford those if you want an efficient offense. Outs on the base paths are the worst. So, thank you for the question, Josh. Next question comes from Pucci Delgado on Patreon, and the question is, if it holds that teams value young big leaguers over prospects at the winter meetings, which Mariners big leaguers make the most sense to trade?
I want to give people an answer not named Luis Castillo because we've talked about it so many times. Also, he technically can't be traded at the winter meetings because you got to wait another month till January 1st when the no-trade clause expires in his contract. Another Mariners big leaguer that could be traded, I mean, if you're going to count him as a big leaguer at this point, I would say the one that probably makes the most sense is Harry Ford because he's still got some prospect status. There are teams out there that could be looking for a catcher. And if you think it's going to bring you back a real bullpen arm or an outfield bat that you could want, he could be floated around.
I'm just going to go back to what we've talked about in the last couple of episodes, and that's trading a starter. I think one of those other starters, if you're looking to really swing for impact, which I believe the preface of this question is that in the offseason, you can't just load up all of your top prospects into a trade package and go acquire Ketel Marte. The Diamondbacks would want big leaguers back. I'd have to say it'd be George Kirby because the Mariners winning has distracted us from the conversation about the four starters in the rotation, something we talked about a lot last offseason. How are you going to keep them all? If you don't have money to spend, should you trade one of these guys so you can get real major league talent back in areas that you're not as good in? The conversation still does stand. Whoever does not get signed to an extension, once they get to within 2 years of free agency, there needs to be a conversation about trading them. Because that's just how the Mariners roll. Like this is their process. So whether or not you like it, it's got to be talked about.
Yeah, and they can't be traded with a year left with a team in a competitive window. Because, for example, if you were to trade George Kirby with a year left on his deal, you're probably only getting prospects back. Think about what Corbin Burns got back in the deal. It got DL Hall and Joey Ortiz, who were fringe big leaguers at the time, but were back-end top 100 prospects. If you were to do that when the Mariners are still in a competitive window, I mean, that's a terrible look. You can't do that. You at that point, you got to keep Kirby for the final year, and then he walks in free agency. If you're serious about trading these guys because you don't think they're going to sign an extension, you have got to do it at a point where you are getting established big league talent back on your roster. And for these guys that you think may or may not sign extensions, this is the point where you have to have some of the conversations because their value's at the point where with 2 to 3 years left on the deal, that's when you get the most value back.
And Corbin Burns, to get that package, had won a Cy Young and been one of the best pitchers in the National League. Kirby's been really good, but he's not been that good. And he would not fetch that package with 1 year left. Thank you for the question, Poochie. Next question comes from Xander on Patreon. Xander's question is, what is your favorite obscure Mariner moment that still makes you smile?
This is a good question. I've used the default answer before about Carlos Peguero hitting absolute tanks back in the early to mid 2010s, so I'm going to pick something different. If I had to pick one obscure Mariners moment that still makes me smile or laugh, I mean, I'd probably say, I don't know how obscure you call this, because at the time it was the closest they'd been to the playoffs in a decade. But I would say the Logan Morrison Game 161 double that tied it up against essentially a fucking Angels AAA roster. Because despite that team winning 97 to 98 games that year, they had already clinched the AL West. They basically locked up the number 1 seed. Halfway through that game, they took everybody out of the lineup. I remember the guy that fielded that ball on the double was a guy named Tony Campana. He's exactly what you'd expect. If you're saying to yourself, who is that? Exactly. But that Lomo double back in a 2-1 Mariners win in game 162 with that, or 161 with that just horrendous offense from that year.
It was so bad.
Is probably my favorite obscure moment.
And the Mariners were trying so hard to score run. Like, the Angels were throwing absolute nobodies, and the Mariners, they weren't even putting pressure on the Angels to score runs. It was just a fucking lifeless offense. That memory makes me smile, but I have a more obscure, even less impactful game that makes me smile. Do you remember Dae-Ho Lee's walk-off home run against the Rangers?
Yes. There was like nobody in the ballpark that day too.
I remember it was spring break. It was a day game, midweek game. You know, the Mariners at this point are right smack in the middle of their playoff drought. They're like fine. Dae-Ho Lee at this point had 2 hits in his Mariners career, and he didn't even start this game. He came off the bench to pinch hit for Adam Lynn against Jake Diekman in the 12th inning. And I remember I was in a bad mood for some reason. I was just playing Xbox, listening to the game. And the Mariners had lost 5 in a row. And Dae-Ho Lee, in his only season in Major League Baseball, steps up to the plate and squats that ball over the wall, and Dave Sims lost his mind.
I was going to quiz you. So you've watched the highlight recently. I was going to quiz you and say, do you remember who gave it up? Because without even watching it, I remember it was Jake Diekman, who threw really hard forever. But Dae-Ho got a hold of it. Also, on top of all the settings, on top of all the settings that we just described about that game, I'm pretty sure it was a midweek game, and I'm also pretty sure it was raining and the roof was closed. So just every reason for there to be about 5,000 people in the ballpark that day, every box was checked. But for the few people that were in the park that day, you saw Dae-Ho Lee in extra innings on a day game, midweek, roof closed, like April game, hit a walk-off homer.
And it was a very classic Mariners again. So they're at this point, this is 2016. They're on year 16 or 15 of their playoff drought. They had lost 5 in a row in the second week of the season. If there's any way to get fans disinterested in your team early on in the season, lose 5 games in a row in the second week of the season, people will be like, see ya. So no one was there, and Dae-Ho Lee sends everyone home happy. So that one made me smile. I remember that.
I was about to check, and I did check, because I was curious once you brought up the name. I was like, Dae-Ho Lee cannot still possibly be playing, right? The answer is no. His final year was 2022 in the KBO. Although, listen to this, in his final year at 40 years old, he hit .331, OPS .881, and hit 23 bombs at age 40.
He's a timeless wonder. He's a timeless wonder. He might be one of the greatest players in KBO history.
It's unreal. And then in Seattle, he put up, what, 0.2 WAR, I think? Yeah, I mean,
he has 740 OPS.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. He was fine. He had 250, 740 OPS. So, yeah, he was fine. He was just, you knew what he was. However, the thing I laugh about from that year is that was Jerry's first offseason, and one of his first quotes that he ever spun out into the public when taking over for the Mariners was how much more athletic he wanted to make that 2016 roster. That was real. Like, that was a quote. He's like, this team needs to get more athletic. And then he had Nori Aoki, Dae-Ho Lee, Daniel Vogelbach at the trade deadline, Adam Lind. I mean, yeah, that one didn't really live up to the hype. I mean, no. that's you know that meme that goes around and has gone around the last few weeks of either wives or friends or kids asking their former pro athlete parents, being like, do you ever wish you were more athletic?
Yeah.
I would like to see all the families of Adam Lind, Dae-Ho Lee, Daniel Vogelbach, Nori Aoki, ask all of them, do you wish you were more athletic? Actually, maybe Jerry should have asked them that during their exit interviews at the end of the year.
The honest answer for those guys, though, might be, yeah, they might be.
Right.
I think all those guys know how slow they run.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess they added Leonis Martin that year. He was an athlete, but the rest of them,
meh. Yeah, it was fine. That team was a fun team, but of course, no playoffs.
Well, I would say there was 4 to 5 players that made it really fun. I don't know if the whole roster was fun. Well, Dae-Ho Lee was fun. I mean, he was a lovable character.
Next question comes from a jumbled username on YouTube, and the question is: seems like it would be more likely if the Mariners got Tarik Skubal at the trade deadline. Can you go over the differences in an offseason versus or trading in an offseason versus what is offered at a trade deadline for Tarik Skubal? Also throws Paul Skeens in there. Before I let you answer, Lyle, Paul Skeens is not getting traded this offseason. Paul Skeens is probably not getting traded next offseason or the offseason after that. He's got way too much control. But anyway, let's use Tarik Skubal as this example. What is the difference between trading for him in the offseason and trading for him at the deadline?
Honestly, a lot. And if you want to go back to this ESPN article that Passan and Kylie McDaniel put together, they don't seem to think the odds of Tarik Skubal getting traded this winter are high. They seem to put it at about 10%, which means if the Tigers were truly just blown away with an offer, then maybe. But otherwise, I think it sits at 10% because they plan to keep him for at least the first half of 2026. Now, what changes at the deadline? Yeah, man, a lot. And the reason for that is a couple of things. You get less time with the best pitcher in the world, so the capital that you'd have to give up in return is obviously going to be cut in half. Along with the fact that if the Tigers are bad and they're out of it, you've lost your leverage. You've truly lost it, because if they don't trade Tarik Skubal at the deadline, every team that's sitting there thinking about acquiring him says to the Tigers, what are you going to do? Keep him on a roster that's 8 games below 500? Well, no, you're not, because then he's just going to walk at the end of the year and you're not going to pay him. So, look, the Mariners would still have to give up something fairly significant for him, but it's going to be a hell of a lot less than you'd have to give up right now.
There's a lot more leverage at the deadline than there is in the offseason. The offseason, the two sides really? Yes.
I feel like the Tigers lose their leverage at the deadline.
The other teams gain the leverage.
Right
now, there is no leverage for anybody.
Right.
The Tigers, by all counts, want to compete in 2026. Like, where's the incentive to trade him?
Yeah.
There is none, right? The Mariners also have no leverage in this negotiation. So the deadline itself, like the hard deadline, forces leverage onto one side or the other. You could even use it as the Josh Naylor trade, for example, given how that sort of shook out. You did mention it's cheaper, yeah, because you're acquiring players 4 months into the season. The Josh Naylor package in the offseason when he was traded from the Guardians to the Diamondbacks was a big league pitcher in Slade Ciccone, and a second-round pick. And when the Mariners acquired him at the deadline, it was for 2 mostly minor league pitchers. So, like, it's a pretty, and Tyler Locklear, it's a pretty big drop-off in terms of value.
Locklear was Gino.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah, Josh Naylor, sadly ended up involving our guy Brandon Garcia getting traded.
Brandon Garcia and Ashton Izzy.
Yeah. Right.
So, yeah, as you can see, the package is a lot. It's a lot less. But the Mariners, if you want to look at leverage, called the Diamondbacks and said, is he re-signing with you this offseason? No? What choice do you have? Like, you traded for him, but you're not good enough. So you got to trade him. And they trade him for what they thought the value they could get back. What the deadline also allows you to do, in summary, it allows the season to play out and you get a better idea of who your team actually is and what your needs are. Because there's a chance you acquire someone in the offseason thinking that's your need and it's not really your need. Meanwhile, in the season, you can see what a need is. So I think that's a good way to explain it.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Next question comes from Darren Bell on X, and Darren's question is, our friend Hembo on the Baseball Tonight podcast suggested that the Phillies trade for Harry Ford and let JT Realmuto walk. Number one, would Ford be a good replacement for JT Realmuto? Number two, what would the Mariners want in return?
I mean, to be fair to the Phillies, they did just give up that real catching prospect for Joan Duran at the deadline. So JT Realmuto's a free agent. Could the Phillies bring him back? They could. And I wouldn't be shocked if they did. But if you're looking for a potential young catcher, if Realmuto comes back on a short deal or you can't re-sign him, it could make some sense. Now, what could the Mariners get back? I mean, Joan Duran would be awesome, but sadly that's not going to happen. If you were to look at some Phillies that you could trade for in exchange for Harry Ford, look, I don't know exactly what the value is going to be, but I think the first name that has to stand out is probably Matt Strahm, right?
We're nowhere near thinking on the same lines. We're nowhere close.
Oh, you know what? Sorry, what am I saying? Strahm's a free agent. No, so it would not be for Matt Strahm.
You might be revolted at my idea.
Well, you're not thinking about a reliever?
No.
Oh, what's on
what
your
about
mind?
A 1-for-1 trade with Alec Boehm?
Why would you do that? Boehm's only got a year left on his deal. He didn't have a great year. I know we talked about him last year, but that was coming off a career year, and even then he had some character concerns, and they're not ridiculous character concerns. He's just been described as a little bit of a whiner throughout his time in Philadelphia. So is that worth Harry Ford when you could have a backup catcher for a long time?
I'm not saying I would do that trade, but if the Mariners are trading Harry Ford, that doesn't seem like a terrible return. It is better than what you currently have at third base, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
But
and,
again,
and also let me ask you this: you say, "Well, Alec Boehm is not that valuable." How much value does Harry Ford have to the 2026 Mariners?
I don't know. How much do you value Cal Raleigh off days? If they're going to be twice a week, that's roughly how many games that Harry Ford could play through a year.
Even max, that's worth half a win.
I would be looking at bullpen arms to trade for Harry Ford. I don't know. Okay, here's the example. I don't know if this package is realistic or not because he has a ton of club control and isn't even in arbitration yet. But, I mean, I'd look at Orion Kerkering. If you're looking for bullpen arms, that's what I'd look at for Harry Ford. And unfortunately,
and he could use a change of scenery.
Well, I was going to say, unfortunately, Orion Kerkering's now infamous moment and what he's best known for among a lot of fans is airmailing a baseball to the plate that ultimately ended up ending the Phillies season against the Dodgers. The Dodgers were probably going to end up winning that game and that series anyway. They swept. But if you put that aside, just one unfortunate play, man, Orion Kerkering's a really good reliever. He's had 2 really good seasons in a row, and he's young. He's only going to be 25.
How many years of control?
4. So, again, it's not an easy
I don't think
sell.
Harry Ford's fetching that.
Well, he is if the Phillies are in desperate need of a catcher. JT's a free agent.
I know, but I don't think Harry Ford's worth a big league reliever with 4 years of control. That's really good.
Again, and that's why I preface this with it might be a little bit of a pipe dream. But if you're asking about the Phillies...
And you could throw other things in there, too.
Yeah, you could attach other prospects, or you could attach other big league pieces if there's certain things the Phillies think they'd want. It wouldn't be crazy big league pieces, but it would be... it could be like a Luke Raley or somebody like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're looking at the Phillies, they're obviously not trading you any of their stars. And those guys also have big contracts. So I'm trying to think about what makes sense for the Mariners. And I look up and down that roster and I see, oh, this is a really good reliever that's also controllable. So Are the Phillies a perfect trade package for the Mariners? I don't know. And again, this is a fun exercise because we got a great question about it for the mailbag, and Hembo talked about it, who obviously we respect his opinion tenfold. But unless it's somebody like that, like Kerkering, I don't know exactly what the Mariners would want to haul back that would make perfect sense for them.
Would it make anyone happy? Fans? Team? Players?
I mean, if the Mariners were to get Orion Kerkering for Harry Ford, I would say people should be happy about that, because that is a potential leverage reliever, or at the very least a very, very good middle reliever, in exchange for a guy who you know is never going to be your starting catcher.
Man, I just feel like teams are going to use that against the Mariners, knowing that Harry Ford's value to other teams is higher than he is to the Mariners. That's kind of how I feel, but that's only if they trade him.
I don't know. I mean, when Kobe Mayo was a prospect, again, I know it hasn't been the smoothest sailing for him through his first couple of big league years, but when he was a prospect, I don't feel like his value was tanked because the Orioles had other good players on their infield.
But there's other places you can play Kobe Mayo, like first base, which he's played. You could DH him. Harry Ford's, if they sign Jorge Polanco, Harry Ford has nowhere to play but the bench.
Yeah. I still wonder.
Because they've also tried him at other positions and they don't work.
Or what about when Gabby Moreno was traded away from the Blue Jays for Varsho? They already had two catchers with Alejandro Kirk and Danny Jansen. They still got a real return for him.
Gabby Moreno wasn't really a big leaguer at that point. Well, I guess neither was Harry Ford, but
exactly.
I think it's a different scenario, because Harry does not. Gabby Moreno is a great defensive catcher. Harry does not have that.
I'm just thinking about catching prospects that were ultimately dealt for other talent. Now, Gabby Moreno, to be fair, was a top 10 prospect in baseball, but I don't know. There's no way for us to predict if other teams are going to hold Harry Ford against the Mariners in terms of his value or not. But it is an interesting conversation.
The last mailbag question is a juicy one. This comes from Oscar McCullough on Instagram, and the question is, how would you feel about trading Colt Emerson straight up for one of these two? Tarik Skubal or Ketel Marte?
This is not a fun question. This is not fun. I mean, it's a very good question from Oscar. It makes you think, because we don't have an immediate answer for this. But it's not really an answer I want to think about.
Straight up means 1 for 1. Only thing you have to do to acquire these players is to give up Colt Emerson.
Man, call me a prospect.
My answer.
I think I do too. I've kind of played tug of war with this since we got all these mailbag questions and decided we were going to ask this one. Call me a prospect hugger, but I think my answer to this is no, because Colt Emerson is the one guy that I would consider pretty much untouchable in the Mariner system. If you were talking about other prospects for this, I think it's a fair conversation. I don't think I'm trading Colt Emerson, because it is a similar cloth that Julio was cut from when he was going to be a rookie, where you are saying, look, you know he's going to be a part of your big league plans for a long time, and you are really, really banging on this guy to be really good. So I would not trade Colt.
Skubal's an easy no, because he has 1 year. As good as he is. 1 year, no way. You wouldn't do that for Ketel? 1 for 1? I would say yes for Ketel Marte.
I don't.
The odds are Ketel Marte, for the length of his remaining contract years, will be better than those 6 years of control that Colt Emerson has with the Mariners. Because Ketel Marte has proven at the big league level, he's a stud. He's at floor, a Hall of Very Good player in baseball. You get that guy under contract for a number of years, and you know he's good. Colt Emerson, we think he's going to be good. The prospect status of him says he's going to be good. Everything we've seen in the minors says he's going to be good. He hasn't done it yet. And what are the odds he's better than what you get from Ketel Marte?
I don't know. I mean, Ketel Marte is going to be 32. At what point does the athleticism go? At what point does the bat speed go? I'm not saying I wouldn't trade for Ketel Marte, but this is why for Colt Emerson, I'd get cold feet. And there's all the questions about how he'd fit in the clubhouse, and will he change up any of the vibes for for a lack of will he change up any of the vibes in the wrong way inside that clubhouse? I think there's too many question marks around Ketel Marte to say, I'm trading my best prospect for this guy, even though Ketel's a top 10 hitter in the game. All of that paired with the money the Mariners would be asked to take on, I don't think I would trade Colt Emerson specifically.
This would hurt in 2029 and 2030, yeah. It would really hurt. It might look terrible. But in 26 and 27, if you made that trade, you're the best team in the American League, hands down.
I would like to see them trade for Ketel Marte without giving up Colt Emerson. That's my thing.
I don't want to trade Colt Emerson, but we're talking a 1-for-1 swap. You don't have to trade anybody else. You don't have to trade any of your starters. You don't have to trade any of your minor league pitchers who are all supposed to be studs. You don't have to trade anyone else in your minor league system. Just Colt.
Again, I think we see this one differently. I'm not usually a prospect hugger, but he is just the one guy where I'd get cold feet because I really, really believe in what he's going to be long term.
Would you sacrifice so you're sacrificing the ability to put yourself closer to win a World Series next year?
I mean, I still think this team's already good. Obviously,
but Ketel will make you better.
Yeah, but what happens if Colt Emerson puts up 3.5 wins as a rookie? That could be not that far off from what Ketel puts up next year.
What if Colt Emerson does what Jared Kelenic did as a rookie?
Well, this is the fun what-if game with prospects, isn't
it? Yeah, we've seen both. We have. We've seen one win Rookie of the Year and be worth almost 6 wins, and the other one be almost essentially out of the league within 5 years.
I think we're just going to see this one differently. This is the one prospect where I get cold feet.
All right. Well, you're going to have to live with it then.
Okay. I want Ketel Marte. I just don't want to trade Colt Emerson to do it.
All right, well, okay. There you go. That's your answer. Thank you for the question, Oscar.
This is a good question. For anybody listening, whether you're on YouTube or whether you're listening on the audio side, tell us. If you're on YouTube, drop it in the comments. Would you trade 1-for-1 Colt Emerson for Ketel Marte? Or if you're listening, feel free to DM us too.
Yeah, and if you're on Spotify, by the way, if you didn't know this, if you listen on Spotify and you don't see this somehow, you can leave us comments too. We do see them. Promise. Yes. All those comments. Spotify and YouTube. We'll read them all.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of Spotify, I know it'll be a couple days old by the time you hear this on Friday, but if we happen to be in your Spotify Wrapped and you decide to post that on your story, tag us. Because Spotify Wrapped shows what the 5 most listened to podcasts that you listen to is for the year. If we happen to be on there and you decide you want to put that on your story, seriously, tag us. We love seeing that stuff. We got a couple today, but we'd love to see more.
I want to give a shout out to Alex Reyes. He tagged us today. His #1 podcast this entire year, 3,000 minutes listened to the Marine Lair podcast. That's amazing. That's amazing.
That's crazy. That's 3,000 whole minutes of having to listen to me talk about Kyle Tucker.
Thank you, Alex. That's amazing. We thank you for your support. We thank all of you for your support. Look forward to seeing all those if you guys post them. It is the coolest thing ever. And I think, what was the number? I sent you some of the numbers. Let's see if I can pull it up. It's this time of year where we really get to understand our audience and some of the new listeners we have who haven't been with us the whole time, or some of you that have been with us since the very beginning. And we had a 255% increase in new audience this year. 255%. That's a crazy number for a podcast in year 3 that already had an audience to then grow that much more and reach that many more people. I thought was super cool. But let me find the number I was actually looking for. We're for 4,000 people, top 10 show. You guys are all amazing. The amount of people who constantly, the 700 people who we're the #1 show for. That's crazy. 700 people on just Spotify, by the way. That's just Spotify. It's the coolest thing ever. Thank you guys.
Yeah. Wait, what's the 4,000 number? You said
4,000. 4,400 people. We're a top 10 show.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy. And like you said,
that's cool. I mean, that means you might listen to us once every other week, but even still, that's great.
Yeah.
We're in your ears twice a month, and I think that's even that much is super cool.
Yeah. And again, that's just Spotify. To your point, that doesn't include people that listen on Apple Podcasts, that watch on YouTube, that might listen on some of the less less mainstream podcast platforms, which some people do. Google
Patreon.
Podcasts. Yeah,
our wonderful Patreon subscribers.
Yeah, Patreon, Google Podcasts. I guess some people might listen on Amazon Podcasts. It's crazy. I mean, honestly, I think the number that jumped out to me the most is we had 4 million total minutes of listening time on Spotify. That's an insane number.
It's a lot. That's a lot of Kyle Tucker. That's a lot of Kerry Carpenter. It's a lot of Dan Wilson.
So, dude, since we're at this point and we're in the middle of praising all our amazing supporters and listeners, I'll let people inside my brain here and give people a little bit of intel. The Kerry Carpenter George Kirby at bat has become my fucking Roman Empire. I'm not even kidding. And it shouldn't. I know, and it's stupid.
Even
I know
though they won the series.
I know, even though they won the series. I know, I'm acknowledging it's stupid because it ended up not making the end-all difference. The one you should think about more is obviously the Munoz thing and the Bizardo thing in Game 7 against the Blue Jays. But no, that Kerry Carpenter thing is legit my Roman Empire. Like, I wake up before 5 in the morning to get on the radio. One of the first things that always pops into my head the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks, Kerry Carpenter, George Kirby. I'm eating a meal. Kerry Carpenter, George Kirby. I'm getting ready for a podcast. George Kirby, Kerry Carpenter. Like, it doesn't end.
The year's going to be 2080. Lyle's going to be 83 years old. He's going to be sitting there barely able to get the fork in his mouth. He's trying to eat whatever advanced food slop we have for him once we get to that year. And he's going to, as his hand is shaking, bringing it up to his mouth, he's going to be like, Kerry Carpenter. Kerry Carpenter.
Dude, just like the absolute bane of my existence. And that matchup will just... Oh, that was sad. That was sad.
But they're walking around spring training. We're going to be watching like Kyle Tucker could be walking past at spring training, and you'd be like, "Oh, K-Tucky, Kerry Carpenter, Kerry Carpenter."
I'm telling you, it's not going to end. I was serious about that in real time. I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to get over this. So I may not.
Congratulations, Lyle.
Yeah, I know. Again, you wanted intel. There's the intel. That's real. Like, I will get up before 5 in the morning and I'm like thinking about Kerry Carpenter and not a bat against Kirby. It's like, how exactly did Gabe Spire not come in that game? Yeah.
Well, at least you're transparent and you admit it, dog. You're not bottling it up and you're not letting it eat at you for years. You're just being forward with the people.
Well, that is true. Although I probably will let it eat at me for years. If you think otherwise, you haven't listened to the pod long enough. But hey, transparency. Anyway, you guys are awesome. Seriously, like to everybody that tags us in all the Spotify rap stuff and listens, you guys are seriously the best. So shout out to you guys. Shout out to all of our mailbag questions on Patreon. As always, if you guys want priority on getting mailbag questions answered, go sign up for our Patreon. We're answering mailbag questions every week. We answer a bunch of them from all of our Patreon members. So it's a great perk, along with you can have video calls with TJ and I. You get ad-free episodes. There's a lot of fun stuff. So you can go check out our Patreon if you're interested. But with that, that'll just about wrap up this edition of the Marine Layer podcast. You guys know the drill. If you want to listen to the full form podcast, you can do so wherever you get your audio pods. Make sure you're downloading these episodes if you're listening. Go rate and review 5 stars. If you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, and please go hit the subscribe button. It's the best way to support the channel if you do. It only takes a second to hit subscribe. Then you know whenever we're posting as well. Everything's over on our website, marinelayerpod.com. That includes our merch. We love seeing people wear the merch, so that's all over there. And you can find us all across social media at Marine Layer Pod. That's TJ. I'm Lyle. As always, we thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you from the winter meetings next week. But yeah, as always, we'll talk to you soon.